Welcome to Family Basics 101. I'm Dr. Bruce McClure, and as we begin the third lesson in the series entitled Sex, today we will talk about sex and the teenage years. By the time children enter the teen years, parental teachings about sex begins to impact children even more. The early stage of development that has laid the foundational teachings that your son or your daughter are precious as children, precious as little boys, precious as little girls, regarding their sex in terms of their male-female gender, now more than ever becomes a wall of security around the teenager during the most turbulent years of their lives. The affirmation the teen received from the parental development from their early stage of prenatal care up until their teenage years gives a high level of contentment of the inner self relative to the appearance, the acceptance, the social belongings, and the spirituality of that teenager. What that basically summarizes is when children are teenagers, their physical self begins to change. Their appearance, they become more awkward. They begin to get tall and lanky. Body hairs start to appear. Their voices change. But it's the reaffirmation from infancy that the child looks okay, that the child is accepted regardless of developmentally how they look or how they sound, that regardless of the age of the child, socially the parent has been supportive of the child. So when the child reaches this teenage stage where they are now into an entirely different domain, it becomes crucial for that child to have all of the foundational reassurances going into those teen years, not from the teenagers, but honestly from their home upbringing. Sexuality for a teen that has been properly developed from infancy will be potentially easier to accept when the boundaries that are designed to keep both the boy and the girl emotionally, physically, spiritually safe as they interact one with the other become more and more prevalent during those teen years. So if the teen has been developed right in terms of their gendering, in terms of who they are as a young boy or a young girl, developmentally from home, it becomes easier for that teen to acclimate into the domain of their teenage peers. In many Eastern and in many Middle Eastern, as well as African and some European cultures, it was not uncommon for teens, both male and females, to marry as early as 13, 14, 15, 16 years old. Now, because the families live so close together proximity-wise, and because so many of the teen challenges of today were better contained because in those social settings, in those cultures, the children married much earlier, many of the challenges that our children, our teens face today were really held at a minimum in those Middle Eastern or African or European cultures. One of the things that our children are faced with today as teens are the idle times that are present between the time they go into adolescent development, puberty, and the time they go into young adulthood, 18, 19 years old, and off to college or into marriage. Many of the children in the earlier cultures were married by the time they were 13. So dealing with a lot of the sexual temptations of erotic temptation was fulfilled in the marriage. A lot of the idle games and a lot of the idle talk that our teenagers are subjected to was very minimal during that time because the family structure was somewhat different. The extended family lived more in the same proximity than they do today. School was really a function of the community, the home. Most of the people worked together every day. And in terms of the entertainment and the social life, it was more in the community where the families were more connected. So the teen years and sex of the earlier years was much more controlled than it is now. Today in the 21st century, it remains the parent's responsibility to provide wholesome events and a wholesome environment that permits the continual sexual development and interaction of our teens. Teens can enjoy social interaction as sexual males and females, but they must have the proper supervision. Teens can enjoy fun activities as sexual males and sexual females, but they again must have the proper supervision and they must receive the proper developmental training. Teens can enjoy educational development as sexual males and sexual females, but they must be in an environment, not always in the school, but from the home to the school, that has already affirmed to the child who they are as a sexual being, meaning gender-wise male and female. Teens can enjoy spiritual fulfillment as sexual males and females. Many children come from environments to where they say church is boring. Church is one of those restricted places. But teens must learn that God is a priority and that God made them a sexual being, male and female. And they are to rejoice and they are to celebrate who God has made in his own image. And that it is indeed good and very good. Teenagers, sexuality, it's a part of who they are. And in order for the children, teenage years to be a joyous time, transitioning them from young childhood into young adulthood, it's really going to be driven by how the adults, the care providers, the churches have developed our teens as sexual beings. In the book of Luke, chapter 2, verses 41 through 52, we're talking about Jesus. Jesus and his parents will go down to Jerusalem to the feast of the Passover. When Jesus is 12 years old, his family will take him. After the feast is over, the caravan of individuals are returning home, and Jesus cannot be found in the caravan. But I want you to notice it is a family, it is a community trip. It's not just one person going with their children. It is an entire caravan of people going. And Jesus could not be found. And when they didn't find him, his family returned looking for him. And the text says, when they saw him, they were amazed. And his mother said, "Son, why hast thou thus dealt with us?" Well, Jesus says, "How is it that you sought me?" Well, what does he mean? They were searching for him in the other guilds, but they find him among the Bible teachers. And he says, "Didn't you know where to find me? You raised me to understand who I am as a male and what my responsibilities are. So whenever I'm not where you think I ought to be, that's where you're going to find me. I'm going to be about my Father's business," because he had been taught very early. So in the teen years, it was very practical for him to do so. I'll see you back in class again next time. Don't be late and don't skip class.